Hello.
Okay.
I'm going to start off with prayer, so everyone, you can bow your heads and close your eyes. Lord, we just thank you, God, for bringing us here together. Thank you, God, for allowing us to just come have fellowship with for you, and that we may just come together as a church, as one body of Christ, and that we may just be able to worship you and to know what you want us to do in our lives, oh God. I pray that this word may just be able to touch everyone's hearts today, that everyone may leave here knowing something new or knowing something that can affect their lives for the better. I pray that the word that I have for them, that you may just speak to me, to your people, and that you may just show me what you want me to show. In the name of Jesus, amen. So, I'm going to be talking about the lesson of Hosea. Nahum is going to translate into Tigrinya so everyone can understand. So we start off with Hosea. He is a minor prophet in the Bible in the Old Testament and has about 14 chapters. Okay, so Hosea, he's a minor prophet and he has about 14 chapters in the Old Testament.
Prophet Hosea. ፕሮፌት ሆሴ ወይ ከዓ ነቢ ሆሴ ኣብ ባይብልና ደሎ ካብቶም ሓደ ንኣሽቱ ዝበሃሉ ነቢያት እዩ 14 ምዕራፋት ዘለዎ መጽሓፍ
The first 3 chapters of the book of Hosea talks about his private life.
ዘን መጀመርያ ሰለስተ ምዕራፋት ናይ ሆሴ ዛዕባ ናይ ህይወቱ እዩ ዛረብ
The second part, which is the last 11 chapters, is about his public life.
ካልኣይ ምዕራፍ ድማ 11 ቻፕተራት ማለት እዩ ምዕራፋት ዛዕባ ናቱ ማሕበራዊ ህይወት ዛረብ
If we look even closer, we can separate the whole book into 4 sections.
ድሕሪ ብጥንቃቐ ተመልኪትናዮ ነቲ ሙሉእ ናይ ሆሴ ምዕራፍ መጽሓፍ ናብ 4 ክንከፍሎ ንኽእል
Chapters 1 through 2 is about his faithless wife.
ምዕራፋት 1 ክሳብ 2 ብዛዕባ ታዲእ እምንቲ ሰበይቱ
Chapter 3 is about future restoration. What does that mean?
ምዕራፍ 3 ብዛዕባ ናይ መጻኢ ሕዌት ወይ ከዓ እግዚኣብሔር ዝገብሮ ፈውሲ እንታይ ማለት እዩ ከዓ ትርጉሙ
It means something God is going to do in the future.
ብዛዕባ እግዚኣብሔር ኣብ መጻኢ ዝገብሮ ነገር ማለት እዩ
A promise that will come.
ተስፋ እግዚኣብሔር ኣብ መጻኢ ዝመጽእ
Chapters 4 through 10 is about the nation of Israel.
ምዕራፋት 4 ክሳብ 10 ድማ ብዛዕባ ሃገር እስራኤል ትበሃል
And chapters 11 through 14 is about the faithful God.
ምዕራፋት 11 ክሳብ 14 ድማ ብዛዕባ እምነት ናይ እግዚኣብሔር
If we look through chapter 1 through 2, we're talking about the faithless wife. So who is the faithless wife?
ድሕራ ምዕራፍ 1 2 እንተሪእና እቲ መጽሓፍ ብዛዕባ እታ ዘይእምንቲ ሰበይቲ ይዛረብ እዛ ዘይእምንቲ ሰበይቲ እዚኣስ መን እያ
In history at the time, the people of God's people was split into 2 nations, Israel in the north and Judea in the south.
ኣብቲ ግዜ እቲ ዝነበሩ ህዝቢ እቶም ህዝቢ ኣምላኽ ዝበሃሉ ኣብ ክልተ ተመቂሎም ነይሮም እቶም ናይ ሰሜን ናይ ደቡብን ጁድያን ይሁዳን እስራኤል ካብ ዓባያ
Hosea was a prophet of the north in Israel.
ሆሴዕ ድማ ነቢ ናይ እስራኤል ኣብቲ ሰሜን ዝነበሩ ህዝቢ
Why did God command Hosea to marry a harlot?
እግዚኣብሔር ንምንታይ እዩ ንሆሴያ ምዃን ነቢ ናይ ኣምላኽ ከሎሲ ንኣመንዝራ ክምርዖ ዛዚብዎ
He wanted to represent the relationship Israel has with God through Hosea and his unfaithful wife Gomer.
إسرائيلاوያን እግዚአብሔር ዝገበርዎ ኣብ ልዕሊ እግዚአብሔር ተፈጽሞ ዝሙት ንኽንጸባረቕ ንነቢ ሆሴያ ኣመንዝራ ሰበይቲ ምርዖ ተነጊርዎ
If we look at Philippians chapter 3 verse 10. It says, I want to know God, or I want to know Christ. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death.
ዝኾነ ይኹን ናብ ትንሣኤ ሙታት እንተ ኣርከብኩ ኢለ ብሞት እናመሰልክዎ ንዕዑ ብሓይልን ትንሣኤን ሕብረትን መክራም እንተ ክፈልጥ ኩሉ መጽሓፍ ቆጽሮ ኣለኹ
Philippians chapter 3 verse 10. This is Paul speaking. He wants to know Christ. He wants to know God, and not just the blessings and the good times.
ጳውሎስ ኣብ ፊልጵ ክዛረብ ከሎ ብዛዕባ ናይ ውህበታት እግዚአብሔር ጥራሕ ዘይኮነ ወይ ከዓ በረኸት ናይ እግዚአብሔር ዘይኮነሲ ንእግዚአብሔር ምፍላጥ ብዛዕባ ዝብል ኣርእስቲ ዝዛረብ ዘሎ
To not only know him in the good, but to suffer the same way God is suffering.
ብዛዕባ ጽባቐ ኣምላኽ ወይ ከዓ ጽቡቕ ጎኒ ናይ ኣምላኽ ወይ በረኸቱ ምፍላጥ ዘይኮነሲ ብዛዕባ እቲ ቡድ መጽእ መከራ ወይ ከዓ ቡድ መጽእ ሓሳረ መከራ ምፍላጥ
He doesn't only want to know God in his power of his resurrection.
ጳውሎስ ብዛዕባ ክርስቶስ ዘለዎ ኣብ ምትንሳዕ ዘለዎ ሓይሊ ምፍላጥ ጥራሕ ዘይኮነሲ
But what about in his suffering?
ኣብቲ ዝነበሮ መከራኸ
God commanded Hosea to marry Gomer and to suffer the same way God is suffering because of Israel.
እግዚአብሔር ንሆዜ ነታ ኣመንዝራ ክምርዖ ዝገበሮሲ እቲ እሱ ዝገበሮ ወይ ከዓ እሱ ዝሓለፎ ስቃይ ብሰንኪ እስራኤላውያን እንዝርና ናይ እስራኤላውያን ክረድኦም ስለ ዝደለዩ
In Hosea chapter 1 verse 4 through 5, if we look,
ኣብ ሆሴዕ ምዕራፍ 1 verse
4 through 5,
ተቐሲ 4
it says, And the Lord said to him, Name him Jezreel, for yet a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the bloodshed of Jezreel. I will put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. On that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel.
እግዚአብሔር ድማ ድሕሪ ቁሩብ ግዜ ንደም እዝራኤል ኣብ ልዕሊ ቤት የሁ ኸውርዶ ንመንግስቲ ቤት እስራኤል ከዓ ከጥፋእ እየ በታ መዓልቲ እቲኣ ድማ ነቐስቲ እስራኤል ኣብ ለሰ ይዝራኤል ሰብሮ እየ እሞ ስሙ ይዝራኤል ኢልካ ስመዮ በሎ
Hosea's life is parallel with the relationship God has with Israel.
ናይ ሆሴዕ ናብራ እስቲ ናይ እግዚአብሔር ዝሓልፎ ዝነበረ ምስ እስራኤላውያን ይመሳሰል ነይሩ
His first son Jezreel means God sows or God scatters.
ቀዳማይ ወዱ ስም ትርጉሙ እግዚአብሔር ያዓጽድ እግዚአብሔር ድማ
God sows,
እግዚአብሔር ዘርእ እግዚአብሔር ድማ
scatters.
ይብተን ትብል ነይሩ
God will scatter the house of Israel as punishment.
እግዚአብሔር ንቤት እስራኤል ከም መቕጻዕቲ ክብትኖም ምዃኑ ዛረብ
His second child was a daughter. In Hosea chapter 1 verse 6 through 7 it says, And she conceived again and gave birth to a daughter, and the Lord said to him, Name her Lo Ruhamah, for I will no longer have a passion or compassion on the house of Israel, that I would ever forgive them. But I will have compassion on the house of Judah, and deliver them by the Lord their God. I will not deliver them by bow, sword, battle, horses, or horsemen.
ተኻለይቲ ጓሉ ድማ ጎሜር ድማ ካሊት ቆልዓ ወለደት እሳ ድማ ጓል ነበረት እግዚአብሔር ድማ ሓፈሽ ክልቲኦም ኣስማት ናይ ደቆ እግዚአብሔር ነታ ኣብ እስራኤል ዝነበሮ መቕጻዕቲ ድንፅባርቕ ስለ ዝነበረ ተክንዲ ሃማን ወይ ከዓ እግዚአብሔር ፍቕሪ እዩ ድብል አንጻር ናቱ ሎሃማን ተባሂላ ሱኻኒ እግዚአብሔር እቲ ህዝቢ ከም ዘፍቅሮ ምልክቱ
God makes a distinction between Israel and Judea here in this verse.
እግዚአብሔር ኣብ መንጎ እስራኤልን ኣብ መንጎ ይሁዳን ምፍላይ ይገብራል
He blesses Judea and curses Israel.
ይሁዳ መሪቁ እስራኤል ካረግሞን
The third child was called Lo-Ami, which means not my people. For you are not my people, and I am not your God.
ሳልሳይ ቆልዓ ድማ ሎ አሚን ሽሙ እሱ ድማ ስኻትኩም ህዝበይ ኣይኮንኩምን አሚን ትርጉሙ ህዝበይ ማለት እዩ ሎ ምእታው ድማ አንጻር ናይቲ ቃል ምዃኑ not my people ወይ ከዓ ህዝበይ ኣይኮንኩምን
So here in Lo-Ruhamah, it means not my people. Lo in Hebrew means not or anti.
ሎ ትብል ቃል ኣብ ሂብሩ ነቲ አንጻር ወይ ከዓ ነቲ ኣይኮነን ዝብል መስምዕ እሱ ድማ ስለዚ እግዚአብሔር እቶም ዝብፅዖም ከሎ እቲ ሎ ዝብል ዝላቅድመሎም ዘሎ ተስማቶም
Again, we see that God is calling out to Israel and separating himself from Israel. You are not my people, and I am not your God.
እግዚአብሔር ደጊሙ ንህዝቢ ጽዋዓሎ ምክንያቱ በስንክቲ ኃጢአቶም ህዝቢ ከም ዘይኮኑ እሱ ድማ አምልኾም ከም ዘይኮነ ረድኦም ኣሎ
However, in verse 10, we see a turning point.
ይኹን እምበር ኣብ ምዕራፍ 10 ግን እግዚአብሔር ሓድሽ ነገር ገብር ኣሎ
It says, Yet the number of the sons of Israel will be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it is said to them, You are not my people, it will be said to them, You are the sons of the living God.
እግዚአብሔር ንህዝቢ እስራኤል ተስፋ ሂቦም ኣሎ ካብቲ ተስፋ ሓደ ድማ ውሉድኩም ከም ሕፃ ባሕሪ ክኾኑ እዮም ወይ ከዓ ትርጉሙ ብቁፅሪ ዘይቅፀሩ ኣዝዮም ብዙሓት ከም ምዃኑ እቲ ኣቐዲሙ ገሊፅዎ ዝነበረ ሎ ዝብል ቃል ተተቐይሩ ሲ እግዚአብሔር ውሉድ አሚን ተስፋ ናቱ እግዚአብሔር ተስፋኦም ከም ምዃኑ ድማ ረድኦም ኣሎ
This is the second chance for Israel and their people.
እዚ ካልኣይ ዕድል ንእስራኤልን ነቲ ህዝቡን ተዋህበ እዩ
Hosea chapter 2 verse 1 says, Say to your brother Ami and to your sisters Ruhamah.
ሆሴ ኣብቲ ምዕራፍ ድማ ብዛዕባ ራሃሚ ጓሉን ብዛዕባ
Hosea chapter 2 verse 1 says, To your brothers Ami and to your sisters Ruhamah.
ንደቀኹም ዓሚ ንኣዋልኩም ድማ ራሕማ
He has now removed the word lo from Ruhamah.
ሕጂ እግዚአብሔር ከምቲ ንሪኦ ዘለና እታ ሎ ትብል ነበረት ቃል ኣጉዲሉ ናቱ ምዃኑ ይረድኦም ኣሎ በቲ ኣስማት ናይ ደቂ ሆዜ ማለት እዩ
The meaning of the name has changed now.
ትርጉም ናይ ኣስማቶም ተቐይሩሎ
God is saying, I am changing your status.
እግዚአብሔር ናትኩም ኩነታት ወይ ከዓ ናትኩም መርገፂ ዝቐይሮ ኣለኹ
You are my people now.
ህዝበይ ኢኹም ሕጂ
Chapter 3 starts the restoration section.
ምዕራፍ 3 ብዛዕባ እቲ ናይ ሕውየት ወይ ከዓ እቲ ምሕዳስ ሓሳብ ይጅምር
Hosea chapter 3 verse 1 through 4. It says, Then the Lord said to me, Go again. Okay. In verse 4, if we read it again, it says that Israel will live many days without a king or a prince.
ኣብ ምዕራፍ 1 ጥቕሲ 4 ዘሎ እግዚአብሔር ብዛዕባ ደቂ እስራኤል ብዘይ ንጉስ ብዘይ ሓለቓን ብዘይ መስዋዕትን ብዘይ ምስልን ብዘይ ኤርፎድን ተራፊምን ብዙሕ መዓልታት ክቕመጡ እዮም
Verse 3 and 4 says, Then I said to her, You shall stay with me for many days. You shall not play the harlot. You shall not have a man, so I will also toward you. For the sons of Israel will remain for many days without a king or a prince, without a sacrifice or sacred pillar, or without a household of idols.
ሆዜ ምዕራፍ 1 ኣሚን ምዕራፍ 3 ካብ 1 ሳዕ 4 ዘሎ ኩሉ ተንቢብናዮ እግዚአብሔር ካብ መሊስካ ኺዱ ሞ ከምቲ እግዚአብሔር ነቶም ያብ ቃሎት ኣማልኽቲ ክምለሱ ብጫ ዘቢብ ዝፈትው ደቂ እስራኤል ደፍቅሮም ፈታዊኣ ዝፈትዋ ኣመንዝራ ሰበይቲ ፍቶ በለኒ ኣነ ከዓ 15 ሲቓል ብሩድን ብሆመር ስገምን ብለተክ ስገምን ንዓይ ዓደክዋ ብዙሕ መዓልትታት ተጸበየኒ ኣይትመንዝሪ ንኻልእ ሰብኣይ ኣይትኹኒ ኣነ እውን ከምኡ ክገብረልኪ እየ በልክዋ ደቂ እስራኤል ብዘይ ንጉስ ብዘይ ሓለቓን ብዘይ መስዋዕቲ ብዘይ ምስልን ብዘይ ኤፎድን ተራፊምን ብዙሕ መዓልትታት ክቕመጡ እዮም
If we look specifically at verse 4, it says that Israel will live many days without a king or a prince.
ኣብ ምዕራፍ ምዕራፍ 4 ዘሎ ወይ ከዓ ኣብ ጥቕሲ 4 ዘሎ እንድሕትርኢና እግዚአብሔር ሲ ብዘይ ንጉስ ወይ ከዓ ብዘይ መራሒ ከም ዝነብሩ እስራኤላውያን ይዛረብ ኣሎ።
What does many days mean?
ብዙሕ መዓልታት እንታይ ማለት እዩ?
Right now, currently in 2021, Israel has not had any king since Zedekiah.
ዋላ ሕጂ እንተርኢና ሲ ህዝቢ እስራኤል ካብቲ ዝነበሮም ዓመታት ክሳብ 2500 ዓመት ዝኸውን ንጉስ ከም ዝበሃል ከም ዘይብሎም
In Jerusalem right now, there is a kingless people.
ኣብ ኢየሩሳሌም ሎሚ ንጉስ ዘይብሉ ህዝቢ ከም ዘሎ ኢና ንርኢ።
And in heaven now, there is a king waiting for his people.
ባራብ ሰማያት እንተርኢና ግን ሓደ ንጉስ ንዓቶም ዝጽበ ከም ዘሎ ኢና ንርኢ።
One day the king will meet his people, like scripture says.
ሓደ መዓልቲ እቲ ዝጽበ ዘሎ ንጉስ ንህዝቡ ከም ዝረኽቦም ንርዳእ ምክንያት ቃል ኣምላኽኩም ስለ ዝብለና
In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 through 7, it says, For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice, righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this.
ኣብ ኢሳያስ ምዕራፍ 9 ኣብ 6 ክሳብ 7 ዘሎ እንተርኢና ሕፃን ተወሊዱልና ወዲ ተውሂቡና እዩ እሞ እቲ ግዝኣት ከዓ መንግስት ኣብ መንኩቡ እዩ ስሙ ግሩም መካር ብርቱዕ ኣምላኽ ኣቦ ዘለዓለም ምስፍን ሰላም ክስመ እዩ ብፍርድን ብጽድቅን ካብ ሕጊ ከዓ ክሳዕ ዘለዓለም ምእንቲ ከጽንዓን ከቆማንሲ ኣብ ዝፋን ዳዊትን ኣብ መንግስቱን ዕቤት ግዝኣቱን ሰላምን መወዳእታ የብሉን ቅንኣት እግዚአብሔር ጎይታ ሰራዊት ነዚ ክገብር እዩ።
As we celebrate the time of Christmas, we should remember the reason for his birth.
በዓል ልደት ነብዕለሉ ኣብ ዘለና ግዜ እቲ ናይ ምውላዱ ምክንያት ክንርዳእ ጽቢቑ ኣገዳሲ እዩ።
A king is born as a child, the most humblest form he can come in.
ንጉስ ከም ህፃን ተወሊዱ ከም ንጉስ መጠን ክብረቱ ክሕደግ ዘይነዓቐ ወይ ድማ ብትሑት ልቢ ከም ዝተወልደ ይረዳእና።
To make a way so that we the sinners,
ንዓና እንቶም ሓጢአተኛታት መንገዲ ክገብር
that we the unfaithful,
ንዓና እንቶም ዘይእሙናት
can be forgiven by God.
ብምሕረት ካብ እግዚአብሔር ክንረክብ
And so we can be given a second chance.
ካልኣይ ዕድል ክወሃበና ምእንቲ
Thank you.
እዩ